Well, g'day folks. Back here interviewing the Mayor. This is the March interview, and I think the hot topic pretty much is covered by rate rises. Yes, we've had a bit of social media heat up on the cost of going to the gardens for non-Hamiltonians, but I think the biggest thing at the moment is the suggestion that we need a 12% rates rise to keep pace with things. Now, can you explain why? Because I know most people just see it as more money coming out of their pockets and don't actually see the economics of why it's actually needed.
Yeah, sure, Lance. Hi, viewers. I'm Andrew King, Hamilton Mayor. Where this started was a couple of weeks ago, leading up to the annual plan. We realised that, or I realised that things weren't how they seemed. The first thing was this graph here, and if you look at this graph, you'll see that we're supposed to be $7 million in the plus, but this is for next year, for 2018, but we're actually $5.5 million, $5 million in the minus. That's about a $12 million gap between where we should be next year and where we're going to be. So we're $12 million below the line there. That's the first thing that worried me, that got my attention. It's not ideal. Now, to fix that, we need a 17% rate rise, and a 17% rate rise. We're either to get us back on track, and we haven't been collecting enough rates for a long time. We're collecting the amount of rates in Hamilton, and our rates level per the amount of rates we pay per dollar of value we have is around about where Dunedin is. Tauranga and Auckland are way above us, and we either have to stop spending, get more, or so if you've got a business, you either stop investing, stop spending, and lay people off and stop services, or else we need to increase our rates. Now, this has nothing to do with the growth agenda. The growth agenda is a totally different subject. So the way around this is a 17 was proposed by the chief executive was a 17% rate rise. I wound that back to 12%. I flagged a 12% rate rise, and that got voted down yesterday. Now, I don't blame my colleagues for voting it down, because they only knew about this. I've known about it for 2 weeks. They only knew about it for 1 week. And when you know about something new and you've been told that everything's sweet for the 6 years beforehand, it takes a while for it to sink in, for you to realise exactly what's going on. Another part of the issue is our reporting. Now, when you look at our reporting to balance our books, it shows here that our books are being balanced through here where the little green bars are. But this is not central government's way of reporting. In the back, this is our 10-year plan. So at the back of this book, you'll see where the government, using the government's method of reporting, you can see that's balancing our books, and we're in 2017, we're at 91%. We've actually haven't balanced our books for years, and the difference is that we get development contributions and other income, which is never, according to the government in the way that they want us to record, it's never a part of, it's never supposed to be above the line, it's supposed to be below the line. And so, in fact, we're not actually making money. So we need to increase revenue. Now, this is where the proposal came on Hamilton Gardens. Hamilton Gardens, at the moment, costs $2.2 million a year just to hold it how it is. That's to pull all the weeds and keep it looking good. Now, Hamilton ratepayers are paying for that. What my suggestion is that people who come from outside the region, outside of Hamilton, outside tourists who are coming through in busloads and not paying for anything, using our toilets, using the facilities and trampling our gardens, should be paying. So it's not for Hamilton ratepayers to pay, and it's not for anyone under the age of 18 to pay. And this is not for the whole of Hamilton Gardens. This isn't where the Rose Gardens are or where Turtle Lake is. This is just for the inner gardens, the pocket gardens, the gardens, the themed gardens, or I'll call them our Disneyland. So I propose a $25 charge to get in. It won't be $25. All we've asked for at this stage is for a paper to be written on whether this is feasible or not, and it will not come back at $25. We don't know what they'll come back on, the experts. Now, there's been a whole lot of other ideas of user pays and targeted rates for things as well that we need to start looking at. We need to be responsible. We need to tell the people when we're going to do anything, how much it's going to cost. We need to go out and consult, and we need to let the people decide. So revenue is what it's all about. We need to up the money that's coming in by being creative from as many different areas as we can, and Hamilton will grow, it will prosper, but we actually do need revenue to do it. So,
Yeah, because if something's not done, that's just the rates have got to go up more to keep pace with it. I've heard one interesting suggestion I heard about funding the gardens was basically a gold coin donation to go through.
yeah, and that's fine, but people from outside the region need to pay their way.
Yeah.
It may not be. It may be that we charge $5 an hour for a car park, paying in the car park, when they're not really paying for the car park. What they're doing, they're paying to visit the gardens, and that's the way that we collect it. There's all sorts of things. So all we've asked for is a report. This isn't going to happen in a hurry. It'll be a year before you see anything happen. But we do need to look at how we can collect revenue. We've got wheelie rubbish tins instead of black bags for coming out, and we've got to decide whether we want wheelie rubbish tins. The rubbish tins cost $7.4 million. Someone's got to pay for that. It may be that a targeted rate goes on the ratepayer for $50 a year for the first 5 years to pay for those rubbish tins. Now, when we go out to consult on that, and when you know as a ratepayer that it's going to cost you $50 a year, you might change your mind and you might submit to say, no, I don't want that. I want to stay with the old black rubbish bag. Founders Theatre's another one. Founders Theatre, $30 million. We all want Founders Theatre, we all want a new theatre, but when you find out that it's going to cost you, through a targeted rate, an extra $100 a year for the next 10 years, you may change your mind, you may not. But what it does, it puts responsibility on you as a person who lives in Hamilton, as a ratepayer, to decide whether you want to put the money up or whether you don't want the service. Now, don't think that you get off scot-free if you're a renter, because the rates are built into the rent, so it still flows through. So these are big decisions. We're a growing city. We've got to look at this, but there is a real story behind this 12% rate rise proposal, and that is that the city can't afford to continue how it is. We're budgeted to lose $12 million next year from where we were, and we need to actually do something about it. If we put it off for another year, what's going to happen is that we'll have another $12 million on top of that to contend with, and the problem will only compound.
Yeah, that's actually the piece about renting. That's one of the things that people completely forget, is the fact that renters are still paying rates. It's just that they're paying that in their rent. And what it would be interesting to do is if people who had ideas of how to generate money from the gardens actually did some sort of submission to the council, just to give them a suggestion. Now, they may not necessarily follow that exactly, but it gives the thinkers in council a jumping off point to say, oh, okay, well, these two ideas are sort of good, maybe somewhere between the two would be ideal, or this sort of thing.
Look, we may never get charged for the gardens. It may never fly. It doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is open up ideas of gathering revenue where the ratepayer doesn't have to carry the whole burden on his own. Look, 1 million people visit those gardens a year, and in the gardens, the themed gardens, 350,000 people visit them a year. Now, this puts a lot of stress on the gardens. You know, people trampling the grass and doing damage, and it'd be also a way of actually trimming down the amount of people who came. It might cut the number of people down to half, and that may be exactly what those gardens need. There's also another $15 to $20 million required for those gardens to finish them off, because there's 4 more gardens coming that have been paid for, but there's another 7 gardens after that at a cost of $15 to $20 million. That money's got to come from somebody. Should the ratepayer of Hamilton foot that bill? The people who live here. All of us who live here, whether you're renting or whether you're paying rates, are paying into the running of the city, either by rent or through rates. So these are big questions that we need to look at. And I know that everyone's a bit taken back and a bit surprised, because we've been told for so long that things are so good, but things aren't good with our finances. I've inherited something that isn't as good as what people thought it was. It's not as good as what I thought it was, and I'm not prepared to sit here and let it deteriorate. We've got to actually fix this. We've got to take action.
So we've got to take action. Do you think it would be a good idea for people of Hamilton to actually get up and start coming up with some ideas that they could suggest?
Or even just letters to the editor. You write a letter to the editor with your idea, and that gets published, and the politicians read that, and you get your message through. So it can be as simple as a letter to the editor with your idea and get it published. and that shares it, and then other people will come back with their ideas. So all these things, we're really open to it. As the Mayor of Hamilton, I have an open morning. I think it's every Thursday, and early in the morning, starts at about 8 till 9, and you ring in and make an appointment. So to do that, you'd ring up Hamilton City Council and say you want to make an appointment with the Mayor on Thursday morning, and they'll make a slot available. So there are ways that you can talk directly to me. There are also ways that you can do it indirectly, like writing a letter to the editor, and then all of the 13 elected members who all have a vote, they're all equally important, and they're very good people. Those people, you can empower them by talking to them or talking through them, to them through a medium like a letter to the editor.
Yeah. So this is going to be a bit of a shock to a lot of Hamiltonians, because it's one of those things that's going to give people a bit of a scare. It's because it's a bit of a wake up, bit of a shaking you by the lapels and waking up to what needs to be done and what's happening. So I think for all people might come out and say things in social media, I think they need to actually start taking this seriously.
Oh, well, to be fair to the people who are saying things on social media, it's a total shock and surprise for them.
Yeah.
A 12% rate rise, where is it coming from? Because they haven't been told the story of why we need it. And I totally understand the people reacting. That's the first reaction. As they the whole story starts to unfold and they understand the whole thing. This is not about growth. Growth is a different story. This is about running the city. The peacocks, the growing of peacocks, the money for that's coming from central government through the $340 million infrastructure fund. That's standalone, that's separate, that's interest-free, and that's ring-fenced as a separate operation. This is about just running our city. We want good services, we want our city to work well, we don't want to cut services, and to do that, we haven't been charging enough rates, and we've been told everything's all right when it's not, so it's a surprise factor here. I totally get it. I'm okay about it. All I want is the best for the city like you do.
Yeah. So people have got to take it seriously and acknowledge it's got to be looked at. You can't turn the other way anymore.
Yeah, that's right, Lance. But it is a surprise factor, and people are, as they hear more about it, as they digest it, people will start to realise. I understand their reaction. I have no issue with that. It is a surprise.
Oh well,
it's even a shock, Lance.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, well, that's probably the most shocking live stream interview I've done with you since I started doing these. Well, thanks for your time, and I think we could probably leave it there and give people a chance to digest that and have a bit of a think about the reality of life in Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Lance, and thanks, viewers, and love Hamilton.
Sweet. Cool.